this evening you will find in the book of the prophet Nahum in chapter 1, and the well-known text found in verse 7. The Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he knoweth them that trust in him. The meaning of the prophet Nahum's name gives us an insight into the primary purpose of his prophecy, written at a time when the mighty Assyrian enemy and others were mustering their forces on the borders of Judah to harass and intimidate and invade and pillage. His name means compassion, or perhaps better, consolation. He was sent by God to comfort Judah, to foretell the destruction of all who hated her and mistreated her, particularly Assyria and its capital, Nineveh, and that he would keep his people, watch over them even in captivity, and subsequently restore them to their homeland in blessing again. Our text was to be their cry, their prayer, their consolation, even when surrounded on every side by hostile adversaries, even when about to be taken into captivity for 7 years, even when things looked bleak and discouraging, they were to cry, "The Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he knoweth them that trust in him." God is their consolation. How then is God the consolation of his people in troublous days? Well, we see firstly, he is a good God. Who speaks? It is Jehovah the Lord, the name of God that conveys the majesty of the eternal essence of the Godhead, as he is the divine being. He is entirely and altogether good. Nahum in verses 2 to 6 of this chapter speaks of the perfect sovereign judgments this good God will bring on Judah's enemies. How they must have been encouraged. Why will he visit their enemies with vengeance? Because he is good. Because he is good, as we have in verse 3, he will not at all acquit the wicked. The Lord's goodness is manifest in justice upon Judah's enemies to bring deliverance to his people. But to his own chosen, redeemed people, God manifests his goodness not in justice, but in his love, his mercy, and his grace. He deals with them, as the psalmist sings in Psalm 106, with that love which thou to thine own dost bear. A unique love, a saving love, a redeeming love, an everlasting love. Nahum declares that in the midst of judgments being brought upon them by the hand of their enemies, which will result in suffering, captivity, and hardship, they were to remember that the Lord remains eternally and essentially good to them, full of love and compassion. He is your God, and he is a good God, and remains so to his people today as we endure our own days of trouble. We can cry, "The Lord is good." But secondly, we see he is a protective God. Jehovah Lord, in all the afflictions that he has visited upon his people, remains a stronghold to them. He will not exempt them from chastisements. He would permit enemies to persecute and oppress. They would be taken down to Babylon for their rebellion, but in it all, God would be their stronghold. It conveys a fortified place, a secure defense, a mighty walled garrison for his people, a permanent and unassailable protection which no enemy can penetrate. It would be a wonderful protection enough If God said, I will provide a stronghold, or will build you a stronghold, or will direct you towards a stronghold. But no, there is far more to it than this. God says, I myself, Jehovah the Lord, I am your stronghold. It echoes the words of the psalmist in Psalm 32 when he sang, Thou art my hiding place. Thou shalt from trouble keep me free. Astounding goodness that Jehovah himself would undertake the task to be the stronghold for his feeble and defenseless people. This immutable God remains a stronghold to his people today, in every one of their own particular days of trouble, as Jesus himself promised in John chapter 10, and no man is able to pluck them out of my Father's hand. You, dear Christian, are held in the stronghold of the Father's right hand of power. Who can pluck you out? Not one. The Lord is your stronghold in your day of trouble. Thirdly and finally, we see he is a knowing God. The Lord, in his divine omniscience, is all knowledge. Everything that can ever possibly be known pertains to Jehovah. But specifically in the text, this is a knowledge of those to whom he is a stronghold. He knoweth them that trust in him. He doesn't just know of them. He doesn't just know about them. He knows them corporately as a people and personally as individuals as his very own. This is an all-embracing, protective fortress of divine knowledge, a knowledge the Lord reserves for only one class of people, those that trust in him, a knowledge founded upon his covenant relationship with his own chosen redeemed people. It is knowledge dependent upon trust or faith. Jehovah is only the stronghold of those who have faith and trust in him. He will only protect and deliver them in their troubles, because he knows them as his own and is intimately concerned with their security. We might summarize like this. When you have saving faith, trust in God, you have knowledge of God's protection and are known by him. If you are then known by him, you know him as your stronghold in your day of trouble. And if you know him as your stronghold in your day of trouble, then you are able to cry, the Lord is good. The Christian might be a ridiculed, dismissed, insignificant nobody as judged by the world's standards, but not to Jehovah. The Lord knows you, dear believer. He knows you are trusting in him. He has ever known you in the councils of eternity, and he will ever know you to all eternity. The Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he knoweth them that trust in him. What a message of consolation for the Christian tonight, from a good, a protective, and an all-knowing God. May the Lord be pleased to bless these few thoughts on his own infallible word to us.